Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, everybody needs a hobby, but will we always have the facilities? And Thundercats, feline turbulence on the waves. And I'll be talking to Alex Baxter, Mayor of North East Lincolnshire, about Armed Forces Day. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Richards. First of all, it's over to Dan Kemp for the news headlines.
Hello there. Over £6 million of investment will improve road connections in North East Lincolnshire leading to Immingham. The announcement was made this morning as part of schemes from central government to improve roads across the country. Earlier today we spoke to Martin Vickers about the benefits the roads will bring.
They've had a big problem for many, many years with HGV traffic, and undoubtedly it is both a danger to pedestrians and cyclists and so on, but it's also takes toll on the properties. Many people along there have constantly been complaining, and quite rightly, about shaking, the foundations being shaking and so on. And so it's great news in that respect, but it's also good news for the business community and the haulage industry in particular, because it provides better access to the port, and it is, by tonnage, the largest port in the country. It's a great asset to the local economy.
Homicide police are appealing to help to locate the next of kin of a woman that's died in Hull. A body of 46-year-old Michelle Walshak of Annandale Road was discovered on Thursday the 12th of February, and whilst her death isn't being treated as suspicious, the police are appealing for anyone that may know her to come forward. It's believed she may have relatives in the London area. Now, the penguins at the Deep are adapting well to their new and improved enclosure. Specialist paint needed replacing after cracks appeared in the floor. The repairs have cost up to £30,000, but the welfare of the penguins is the Deep's priority, and lots of people are expected to see them during the half-term. Andrew MacLeod, Assistant Curator of the Deep, detailed the repairs.
Fortunately, the specialist paint that we'd used was a little bit too slippy. And when we put the penguins back in, we noticed very quickly they were slipping around on it. So we removed them again, and we went back into the display and put in a special grit into that fan special type of paint. And that's given it just that extra little bit of grip that's meant that the penguins are able to hop around on the ice without too much falling over, if you like.
And finally, almost 500 artworks by artists from our area are now on display in Hull. The open exhibition is a platform for artists from this region to submit their work, to be judged by local art critics, and then displayed in the Ferrens Art Gallery. And it's hoped events like this can help inspire local artists in the run-up to Hull's City of Culture Year in 2017.
It gives artists more confidence to have their work on display. You know, it really sort of invokes a bit of debate about art, this kind of exhibition. So I think, you know, the local audience really enjoy it.
And that's all from me. Bye for now.
Use it or lose it. That's the message from the people who run a community centre on Scunthorpe's Grange Farm estate. It used to be run by the council and was looking a bit tired, but a lot's happened since a community group took over, and now they want people to come and take another look. Because it's not cheap to run, and with rising costs, they need more people through the door to stay afloat. James Dunn has more.
This centre has served so many people for so long that it's difficult to describe how important it is to the Grange Farm community.
Do this little.
Well, I can't really tell you how important it is, for the simple reason there's so many people who rely on it. We've got 23 different groups in. If you consider some of the groups have 30, 40 members in, some have a lot less, but you're talking on several hundred people who come in through the week, something between 400 or 500 people through the week.
But running this vital centre isn't cheap. Last year outgoings were just under £40,000, and with the rising cost of bills, the Treasurer predicts they could be as much as £50,000 this year. They need income to rise as fast as expenditure, or the consequences could be dire.
Basically, the central fold. The centre is owned by the council, they own the buildings, but the Hobby Centre committee have to fund it, pay for the staff, the gas, electricity and the other things, water and the rest of it. But our main source of income is the rent.
The centre has a number of specialist facilities, so if it was to close, many groups could find themselves homeless and potentially unable to continue.
This area is extremely important. There's only 2 clubs in the area at the moment, and these facilities are excellent. They provide everything we need. If we didn't have this, we'd struggle to find anywhere.
The centre's had a makeover in the last few years, so now they're trying to draw people in to take a look with fresh eyes. There are a number of new initiatives, like a lunch club being introduced to get people through the doors. And the message to the community is simple. Come in and have a look. You might just be surprised.
I think there will be, yes, because there's people who we know has come in recent months who haven't been in for 20, 30 years or even longer, and they've been so surprised at the changes that's gone on. And it's not just been under my chairship, but other people prior to me. And we hopefully will keep progressing.
You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later in this programme, I'll be rounding up the weekend's news with Richard Morris, and Dan Kemp will bring you all the sports news. I'm joined by Alex Baxter, Mayor of North East Lincolnshire, late of the Royal Navy, here to talk about his mayorality's preparation for Armed Forces Day. Alex, thank you very much for coming in.
No problem, Hugh. Absolutely delighted to be here.
When and where will Armed Forces Day take place?
At the end, we do it on the last weekend in June every year. This year, of course, it will be Saturday the 27th of June, and we have a military air display on Sunday the 28th of June.
And where should people be to come and take part?
Obviously, you've got to be in Cleethorpes. That's a natural resort. It has all of the facilities we require, including the ability to have an air display, fly over water safely rather than over a city. We have arranged a regular route for the march on Armed Forces Day itself. We have street closures in place from Alexandra Road through to Seaview Street, and we have a large market down Lower Kingsway, and we will also close off part of Knoll Street in order that the troops can assemble and military vehicles can get past. But we're really, really looking forward to this. It will be bigger and better every year. 60,000 people last year, and we will probably increase that again this year.
And it culminates at the War Memorial on the front at Cleethorpes.
Well, it's not actually a war memorial, it's a remembrance gate, and it's to remember and thank the members of our armed forces for the duties and work they do on behalf of the nation, on behalf of the borough, and in fact, on behalf, I would say, of the Western world in today's environment.
What's the difference between the Armed Forces Day in the summer and, for instance, the 11th of November or Remembrance Sunday in November?
There is an absolute difference. Armed Forces Day is specifically designed for the public to show their support for the work done by the armed forces, servicemen and women, and of course to demonstrate the backing we have for their families and for their children, because we are actually part of the community, they are part of our community, and the freedoms which we thoroughly enjoy are as a direct result and consequence of their actions and duty.
You mentioned there'll be a flypast, so of course that'll be Royal Air Force personnel, presumably at the helm in the aircraft, but soldiers marching in military vehicles as well. What units will be present?
Well, we have to wait till nearer the time, but we are sort of expecting one of the cavalry regiments to become involved, and we hope, of course, that our local regiment, the 2nd Battalion Royal Anglians, will have some presence. We generally get a good turnout from the Guards Division, because they will, of course, as a consequence of recent conflicts, have soldiers here who are injured, and of course their casualty officer will ensure they have a presence, and really this is another recognition of the respect in which we hold each an individual soldier.
And you mentioned then that historical context, so the 2nd Battalion, the Anglian Regiment, is the descendant, as it were, of the Lincolnshire Regiment, isn't it, the Yellow Bellies?
There is a fairly long history. I think at the outbreak of the First World War, the 5th Volunteer Battalion Lincolnshire Regiment actually went to war on its declaration. So they weren't what some other regiments would consider re-established at a later stage. The Chums Battalions, Powell's Battalions were all about a year afterwards. But of course there were 1,000 men from the local region, from Lincolnshire, Scunthorpe, Goole, Grimsby, Cleethorpes, and all of this region who were deployed at the very beginning of the war. They weren't quite untrained, but at the end of the day they didn't expect the war but had to mobilise in any case because of circumstances in the Balkans at that time.
That's quite historical. Right up to date, though, your region, North East Lincolnshire, and the whole of the northern Lincolnshire and East Yorkshire region have always traditionally provided a lot of personnel for the armed forces. In our very modern conflicts here, as you say, defending the liberty of the Western world, they've always been... We're a warrior race, aren't we, up here?
Well, I would like to think that at least we know what we're doing and we're professional about how we do it. We also have a great respect for the rights and freedoms which are exercised not only in this country but are required to be exercised and protected in other countries, otherwise it spills over into our own.
And these people who lay their lives and limbs on the line for exactly those civilised values, what more can we do to appreciate them?
Well, the first thing you can do is come along and support them on the 27th and 28th of June, and that will demonstrate to those soldiers, sailors and airmen and their families and children that we really, really do care. We appreciate what they do, we love them, and we provide more soldiers, more sailors and more airmen from this region than almost any other county in the land.
What is confirmed as far as the air display is going to happen?
The military air display, of course, we can confirm that the Vulcan has agreed to fly. And more importantly, all of the other assets are not declared until the end of next month. So we can't actually say line by line what's going to happen. We are very confident that we will have the right number of aircraft to put on an absolutely brilliant display. But you shouldn't forget also at the start of the military air display on the Sunday, the crack of dawn at 6 o'clock, we hope that all the hot air balloons, which will be on show on a Saturday evening with a spectacular firework display, will fly. So you just have a whole region full of hot air balloons. A spectacular sight, really, really is.
Well, a certain amount of military secrets there about the air display, but that Vulcan is tremendously important in Bomber County, Lincolnshire, of course, isn't it?
It is very, very important. In fact, we were, I suppose, considered to be Bomber County, and that I think also it'd be remiss of me if I didn't actually mention.
Must stop there, Alex. Thank you very much.
No, you're okay.
Racing at up to 50 miles per hour in a catamaran on a freezing day in cold water doesn't sound like the most appealing sport in the world, but it's exactly what the Racing Angels Thundercat team do every day, and they're bringing something unique to their sport. Dave Nunn is all at sea.
It's a cold, bitter morning on the banks of the Humber, but for Demelza and Tracy, braving the cold is part of their daily training routine.
We're out on a training session basically to get us used to the water.
We take part in a sport called Thundercatting, and as you can see, it's an inflatable catamaran, and it goes at 50 miles an hour. Well, up to 50 miles an hour we can get out of it.
Thundercat racing is a type of catamaran racing in which a duo compete at high speeds and are doing up to 6-metre high jumps in the pursuit for glory. Demelza is the driver and Tracy is the co-driver. The Racing Angels team is unusual in Thundercat racing as it's the only all-female team in the world.
Pressure to perform well, but
yeah, I don't really see that there's any division between the girls and the boys, to be honest. It's about showing that we are just as capable as what the lads are doing, you know. We're just as strong.
Questions are always being raised about the differences between women's and men's sports. Demelza and Tracy see themselves as breaking down barriers and offering inspiration to women wanting to get involved in the sport.
I think so.
I hope so. Yeah. It'd be absolutely awesome to get more females into the sport, and you know, I hope that we could, you know, bring some more females into the sport with all the promoting and that we're doing. It'd be really good to even have one day our own class, you know, an all-female class of its own. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
With the 2015 season fast approaching, Racing Angels hope they can make waves both in and out of the water.
Time now for our weekly reflections, this time with the pastor of Market Raisin New Light Church, Paul Hiley.
Well-known TV personality and acknowledged atheist Stephen Fry got himself into hot water recently when asked, "What will you say to God when you reach the gates of heaven?" The answer was a torrent of anger and outrage at a God who allows child cancer and a string of other terrible forms of injustice and suffering in the universe he is supposed to rule. "How dare you? How dare you?" was his refrain. I couldn't help thinking it was funny for an atheist to get angry with a God who didn't exist. Then I remembered the answer Billy Graham gave when asked what he would say when he got to heaven. Apparently the great man wiped his hand over his brow and exclaimed, "Phew." Now, whichever of these reactions is closest to your own, it is still worth preparing our answer. One day we will need it. I know what mine will be, and it's very simple.
Richard Morris joins me now to take us through the region's events over the weekend. Richard, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Hugh. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
What's been going on in the last 48 hours?
Well, people have been warning us about scarlet fever, apparently. This is reported in the Scunthorpe newspapers. Apparently there has been an increase year on year. So this time last year there was 66% less cases than there are now, which obviously makes for
66% fewer cases.
Fewer cases, I do apologise. I sound like certain 10 items or fewer. But yes, so 158 people have already been diagnosed in Yorkshire and the Humber this year, which is obviously, it's quite an increase on previous years. And obviously Public Health England are, quite concerned about it. It is a very, very contagious disease, and obviously, they'd like to, for people to stay at home if they have, a suspected case of it, stay at home, don't go into contact with other people.
Scarlet fever is almost, it makes you think of Dickensian England, doesn't it?
Yes,
a Victorian squalor in the slums. It seems historical. It doesn't seem like, it's surprising that that disease is still with us.
I always presumed it was a vaccination job, but apparently not, or apparently people aren't getting vaccinated for it anymore. I don't quite know that, but it's interesting that it's, that it's increasing again. Apparently there have been 1,265 cases in the whole of England this year, which is
a tremendous amount.
It's a lot. It is a lot.
Well, I guess the message is get the jabs if they're available.
Yes, yes. Second of all, a couple's library ordeal is over. Apparently, Bridlington Central Library is the new Claridge's and won't allow people to breastfeed. This was a mother called Suzanne who wanted to breastfeed Evie during her evening classes, and she basically it caused a huge controversy. They said that they offered her a free room for her to go and breastfeed in. She said that they didn't. It's caused a huge sort of controversy.
There's a great division, isn't there, of people who think that it's perfectly acceptable and natural to breastfeed in public, and the usual convention being that you keep your breasts covered in public, for women anyway, and those who were maybe a little bit more old-fashioned about the thing.
But it said that she's going to continue with her courses in September anyway. She's missed so many of the courses now due to the ongoing sort of controversy about it, that she's just going to restart the year again in September, when hopefully she won't have to feed Evie as often, or if at all.
Good luck to her.
Indeed. Louth Town Council is proposing an open evening for its prospective town councillors, apparently.
For prospective town councillors?
Yes,
so
obviously.
Candidates in the local elections.
The 7th of May is, of course, the big day, and on Tuesday, February 24th, so next Tuesday, from 6 to 8 p.m, you can go along to Louth Town Hall and you can see how it works. Now, of course, whether or not they're going to say to people, God, it's awful, you don't even get free tea or coffee or anything, try and put people off from being prospective.
Well, it is a good idea, isn't it? Because when you get involved as a councillor in local government, or at any level of government, it's complicated and you have no training. There is no training.
Yeah, there is.
So it's a very good idea to get people used to that as quickly as possible. Just one more quite quickly.
Top Gear's Jeremy Clarkson claims that Whitby has the world's best fish and chips, according to the Grimsby Telegraph. And this has caused huge, well, once again, another controversial story. Apparently he was test driving some car or other and re-sparked a debate between Yorkshire versus Lincolnshire fish and chips.
Good. He's a great peacemaker, that man.
He is indeed. He's a very, very interesting gentleman.
Richard, thank you very much for all of that. And now here's the sport with Dan Kemp.
Scunthorpe United recorded a stunning second-half comeback to beat League One title challenger Swindon Town at 3-1 at Glanford Park on Saturday. The Iron went in at the break behind, but goals from Paddy Madden, Niall Canavan and new boy Kevin Van Veen saw the 18th place side pick up the victory. Elsewhere, Grimsby Town lost 1-0 at home to promotion rivals Bristol Rovers. Tom Lockyer scored the only goal of the game midway through the second half. And North Ferriby United drew 0-0 at home to Tamworth. They're now 11th in the Conference North. In ice hockey, the Hull Stingrays scored a last-minute goal to beat the Fife Flyers at the Hull Arena. Carl Lozon netted twice before Will Frederick and Eric Galbraith also scored. Jordan Myers scored the winner with just 46 seconds remaining on the clock. The 5-4 win sees the Rays remain 7th in the Elite League, but have games in hand over every other team in the division. In Rugby League, Hull FC lost 7-6 in an extremely tight affair at the KC Stadium on Friday night. Tom Lynham scored the Black and White's only try, which was converted by Mark Sneed. Across the city, Hull KR went down 24-44 to the Wakefield Wildcats. There's no games next weekend for the sides as it's the World Club Series. And back to football, and Hull City's relegation rivals Aston Villa have appointed Tim Sherwood as their new manager on a contract until 2018. The Villains sacked previous manager Paul Lambert, having gone 10 games without a win. Sherwood himself has been without work since he left Tottenham at the end of last season, where he replaced Andre Villas-Boas. And finally, Scott Nielsen, having been released by Grimsby Town last week, has signed for Conference South club Whitehawk and looks set to make his debut for the playoff chasers tomorrow night. And that's all for the sport.
Thanks very much, Dan. Before I go, just a quick reminder that we'll be bringing you hot topic election specials in the weeks running up to the general election. I'll be in all the parliamentary constituencies to which we broadcast, getting together all the candidates willing or able to join me. It's your chance to judge the people who want to represent you in Parliament and in government. And there'll be 2 new election specials every week starting from the 16th of March. If you want to contact us directly, email hottopic@estuary.tv and we'll be live on the evening of the general election itself on the 7th of May from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. with a live results special. Huge thanks to my guest today, the Mayor of North East Lincolnshire, Alex Baxter, and I'm afraid that's all we have time for tonight. If you have a story for us, as ever, please go to our Facebook or Twitter pages, details on the screen, or if you can, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 31553. Until tomorrow, good evening.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. A cold, dry start for Tuesday, then gradually becoming cloudier and milder from the west. From late morning onwards with a few spots of rain at times, mainly over hills and a maximum temperature of 7 degrees. Wednesday, cloudy and breezy with mild rain at times and turning heavy overnight.